right after this. All right, so we're watching a little European game of a 2v2 here. So lag might be a little bit awkward, but that shouldn't matter too much for us, given that we're observing. So it's not the end of the world. So we're going to take a look. There's a nice little science spot down here with that iron-water geo combination going on. You could superconductor that pretty hard, actually, and do some dumb things after taking virtual reality. There's a great little spot up here. I mean, it's just got, like, everything right next to it. Although the water is kind of weak for it. But water looks pretty weak around the map, except for this place. I really want someone to take this. This in particular looks super important to me, this game.
What an excellent location for a lab.
And Gameslayer is going to be the one to grab the spot I was looking at. Hubert instead decides to go for a general expansive opening, which should work out reasonably well for him. He's got strong aluminum, strong iron, and a steel mill down with good access to geotherms. That's exactly the kind of thing you're going to want as an expansive player, usually. I definitely like Saber Man's opening. It's going to mix well with Gameslayer's, in my opinion. Looks like he is just going to try and take some aluminum and silicon. As a scientist, which should be a nice fine little opening. He will be able to push into like 6 steel here, although being so late to it makes things really awkward with Hubert, because he's already taken some steel. Looks like Vavi is actually going to take that first expansion there. Hubert's already grabbed some steel and some steel-based resources, but that's not necessarily the end of the world. They could still work with this just fine. Just have Vavi take like 6 steel mills and run with it. That's totally acceptable. Maybe you're going to need to actually use this expansion here. He's got 3 claims sitting around unused at this point, I believe. And so it's going to be important for him to go ahead and do that. I did learn, by the way, that we can shift-click in order to look at people, or we can use the numbered buttons, which I don't remember exactly who everybody was this game with the numbered buttons. Gameslayer, Saberman, Hubert, and Vavi. All right, that works for me. Just a nice, simple little 2, 3, 4, 5. So, as you can see, Gameslayer and Saberman are going to have a pretty nice lead at this point. Vavi did go ahead and take some food away from Gameslayer, but then he's gotten his own food blocked off. It does prevent Gameslayer from having nice, easy access to a triangle himself, though. And so Vavi may be the one coming up on top here, just making sure to get in his way and keep him from getting everything he would want. There are, however, pirates this game, so he's going to have to watch out for that long term, as his food could pretty easily get taken away. Let's see how Hubert's doing. Hubert is going into the geotherms that were discussed earlier. He's just going to grab those up and be the one providing power for his team. I definitely like this play. It's a bit unconventional. You know, a lot more of the time, if you have like a dedicated power player, it's going to be a robot. But I love the expansive doing it because his geotherms are just so cheap. His geotherms are so cheap. It's why the expansive player loves to build those expensive buildings. They're just so cheap. Alright, Hubert trying to stockpile some low-priced resources. That's understandable. Let's see. They are just sharing everything on Team Beta with Vavi and Hubert. Nobody's quite managed to push to HQ level 3 on that team yet, though, and that leaves me kind of concerned. They do have the button available, probably just deciding who's going to actually take it at this point. Either one could work. Between something like an expansive and a robot, you almost always have the expansive take it. Between expansive and scientist, it is a bit more of a question because expansive gets more claims, but the scientist potentially gets more efficient claims. So that is something to worry about. Alright, Hubert should manage to pay through his debt before too long on these geotherms. Power's holding its price pretty well. However, there are solar panels down for Saber Man, and so he is taking away some of that power profit. And Saber Man is already in a position to turn that into cash. Would have loved to see something like a power surge on these throughout the day yesterday. You know, this past day 2. In order to shut that down and make sure Hubert was able to make that money back himself. Financial instruments going to be very difficult to use this game, I think. At least that's what it's looking like at this point. Gameslayer has the most debt by far at 50,000. But even that, because he's already HQ level 4, it's leaving him in an A rating. And is Gameslayer going to be the one to pick this up? That would be a little weird. Gameslayer wants it. I mean, GameSlayer likes the debt. It can be a useful tool against him. Him taking it away from other people could also just be nice in case things start going wrong for them. But it is a little bit weird. It is a little bit weird that GameSlayer's wanting this for $18,000. I don't know if it's going to be worth that this game, but he's probably not too worried about his debt, so he's going to likely be thinking better safe than sorry when it comes to something like that. GameSlayer has claimed a Pleasure Dome location and is trying to move on into that. He also has a Goon Squatted patent office up already. That is almost certainly going to start virtual reality the moment he has the ability to make it happen. Let's check. He's sitting on 3,000. Yep, he's got it going. Virtual reality on the way with that Pleasure Dome. Whoa, he actually took both locations.
Scientific colony expanded.
That's interesting. He really wants to make sure nobody gets in the way of his Pleasure Dome in this game. This is how good Pleasure Dome is, guys. It's pretty good. Although this game is not going to be the best Pleasure Dome game, I expect. Simply because we've got a robot, we've got like 2 scientists, and there's no scavengers. Things are pretty odd for the Pleasure Dome this time. But it still should work out pretty well for him once power starts coming back down. How's Hubert doing on the debt?
Market is online.
Looks like he's almost managed to pay it off, start making money from those geos. That's going to be an important point for him. Vavy has that patent lab up, only just now got nanotech started as GameSlayer finishes up virtual reality. He doesn't have anything else to do with that just yet. I imagine he'll find something before long, although it looks like at this point it's probably not going to end up being nanotech.
And we screw with you.
Alright. GameSlayer over here just trying to soak in the power. He does get hit by an EMP, which also shows there are no goon squads in that area. And so that might just keep coming down on him. Very, very difficult for Saber Man to do much without his power online. He is absolutely relying on those mega tiles in order to make sure that he can stay in this one. Oh, that's not the kind of exchange you're going to want as Hubert. Looks like he managed to steal away an opponent's solar panel as it came online, but his own geotherm got taken at that same moment, and that is definitely not exactly what he wanted to have happen. Does manage to take it back with another mutiny, so it might work out okay, but once again, Hubert and Vavy just running so far behind GameSlayer and Saber Man at this point. GameSlayer already on HQ level 5. He's got Cold Fusion done. Don't know what he's going to be moving into next, but that will help him compensate for these Pleasure Domes. I'm wondering, he's got one off right now. I'm wondering, that's likely worth it at the moment, just because power is so expensive, and then he could likely turn it back on later. But you'll see, even with virtual reality running this game, Pleasure Domes are pretty weak. This is only 296. We would expect to see a Pleasure Dome, a solo Pleasure Dome, more like 400 or 500 at this point. But there just wasn't a good place to place it. The colony is being a little bit awkward this game. And of course, power is very, very expensive. So this game manages at least to not be all about just the Pleasure Dome. Man, water looking a bit awkward for those reactors right now. Hubert almost certainly going to want to do something about that fairly soon. Core sample is a little weird here. Don't know exactly who's going to want it.
16,000.
Hubert so far is the one looking at it, kind of wants that core sample. Hubert and Vavy just need to get upgraded. It feels like they do not have enough steel production. Really wanted to see Vavy just go super hardcore on that steel the way GameSlayer did. GameSlayer's got 6 steel mills up, and you can see what that has done for his team in the short term is just accelerate them through upgrades so fast. And then what's great about it is with steel, you always can move steel into a late game resource by using it to put up an Offworld. Even if Offworlds aren't great, at least it is an option. In this game, you at least have chems at 430, oxygen at 400. It's a usable Offworld. Their patent lab is probably undefended, says Vavy. He is in fact correct about that. And it does get EMP'd out. Of course, Scientific Patent Lab, pretty resistant to those EMPs. GameSlayer probably not going to be sweating that one too much. One concern for Saber Man and GameSlayer, water has gotten very expensive. And while while GameSlayer technically has water, he doesn't have a whole lot of it coming in. Only 3 water a second right now. And they could definitely be abusing that, or have that be abused against them by their opponents if they don't focus on that and make absolutely certain they've got enough water. Hacker arrays still super dangerous in the 2v2 situation, if you even have just one little opening in your economy. Looks like we are going to be having a carbon shortage here. Does anybody actually have carbon right now? I don't think they do. What is this going out? This looks like a couple of probably carbon quarries headed out right now. You can see it's headed to this little carbon patch over here. People realizing, hey, carbon's kind of good. Maybe we should carbon. There's also, you got one like right here, which is not a great one, but at least it's pretty close by, so it won't cost too much power. Finally, power price is starting to come down. We can see the pleasure domes doing a bit better at this point, up at plus 164. That investment should be paying off for Gameslayer before too long here.
Scientific colony expanded.
Alright, Vavi and Hubert have caught up to HQ level 4, still one short of that HQ level 5 of their opponents. But it feels almost like Gameslayer and Saber are starting to stall out just a little bit. They're going to need to make a transition. They're going to need to make a strong move here somewhere in order to really make this work. Hacker Array is silent.
No,
this Hacker Array is also silent, like both Hacker Arrays. Is this Hacker Array even done? I don't think so. Under construction, 52%. So can't really see that with the hologram up. That's something to consider. That's a little bit awkward. But it does at least look like a chem lab. So maybe Hubert and Vavi aren't quite so sure about what's going on there? Seriously? Saber Man just bid up Gameslayer on an auction. Guys, don't do that to your teammates, especially when it comes to black market, because you can use black market on each other just fine. Like, you can patent lab each other, or sorry, patent lab each other, wow. You can goon squad each other, you can adrenaline boost each other, you can adrenaline boost your opponent with a network virus, and that's always hilarious. Don't bid up your ally. Just don't do it. You don't need to. Hubert did finally move into that superconductor we were expecting out of him. Quite some time ago, quite frankly. It's not going to be nearly so strong now, but it might force some awkward transitions once again out of Saber Man, as he has to clear out his solar panels. If he's forced into that, then Hubert can start driving that price up to help fight against these pleasure domes, and those are the kinds of plays we do expect to see out of Hubert.
Expansive colony
Slant Drilling looks like it's going to be coming out for Gameslayer as soon as he can manage it. And Hubert has managed to push to HQ level 5. Gameslayer and Saber Man, I still don't see how they're going to win this game. But despite that fact, they have managed to accumulate quite a bit of cash. Gameslayer is sitting on an awful lot of money right now. And he needs to start throwing it around with these hacker arrays or engineering labs, anything that he can. Just put that money in something so you can actually make the killing blow, because every moment he's not doing that is an opportunity for Hubert to start coming back into things, making a difference, for Vavi to get to HQ level 5 and help be a good supporting player for his ally. There are options here for Team Beta and Alpha. I really hope they're not going to let this one slip through their fingers after such a strong lead that they got early in the game. Finally, Slant Drilling comes out. I don't know exactly how much that's going to actually do for Gameslayer, though. Like, what is he using with Slant Drilling? Because I don't see a whole lot of great options for him right now where that is going to help out. Besides the water. The water is nice. It does give him a lot more water per second. I can't type. I don't even know if that actually goes to all chat or not. Timer, give a bigger readout. I don't know what that means. Anyway, there's a glass shortage coming out. That should be good for Saber Man and Hubert. Sorry, Saber Man and Gameslayer. They've got glass going. This is the kind of play they need to make. This is exactly the kind of thing they're looking to do. Just drive that glass price insane, make a lot of money. Now Saber Man is sitting on like almost $250,000, and he can just murder Hubert with that and get a good start on it right here and now, which is exactly the kind of move they need to be making. Finally they managed to execute on it. Felt like it took forever. Nobody wants the core sample, as per usual.
Your stock is being bought. Your stock is being
All right.
bought.
Hubert's going to try and defend himself here, but unfortunately, when you have to defend yourself in this situation in particular, it means you've almost guaranteed lost the game, because as we talked about earlier, Gameslayer and Saber Man were giving time for Hubert and Vavi to build up and build up and build up, but they also never managed to quite push to the point where they had a building or a setup they could use to make a killing blow. Instead, everything's just kind of spread around. Hubert's got this very awkward aluminum going on right now. He's trying to work with the glass, but I wouldn't be surprised if Gameslayer and Saber Man just shut that door very, very soon. Looks like the hacker ray isn't functional right now. Like, they don't even need to hack glass at this point. They should hack something, guys. Come on. Like electronics, maybe. Or maybe even just carbon, for all they care. They want to find something else to use this hacker ray with, or make the transition, potentially, into an Offworld. But they didn't quite have enough to finish Hubert yet. And so they're not out of the woods just yet. They gotta still be thinking about how exactly they want to press this one forward. It really depresses me that they had so many hacker rays up and they just weren't using them. Engineering lab is working away on food production. Nobody wants that Offworld because it is so expensive for them, and it isn't great, so they are trying to finish things on this hacker ray at this point. Man, is Hubert actually leaking water? Or is he... Yeah, Hubert pulling in quite a bit of water. I like this play out of Hubert. I would have loved to see him hack water a long time ago, given that his opponents were not very effectively in it. But that's alright. Hacker Ray just so good in this game mode, because you still basically only have to kill one person, and the Hacker Ray is a fantastic tool to turn, like, a moderate amount of money into a large enough amount of money to actually pull off a kill. And when that's all you have to do, well, you can be set up in a great spot. I feel like even if Hubert gets this buy on Gameslayer, like some miracle happens, he pushes up to enough, Gameslayer doesn't pay down debt, the game still probably isn't going to go his way, because Saber Man is still going to have, like, 80% of Hubert purchased. What actually needs to happen, I think, for Hubert and Vavi to have a shot of winning this game is Vavi needs to purchase Gameslayer so that when Hubert gets purchased, it's still a 2-on-2 in terms of headquarters. That's what we need to see, and it might be able to happen out of Hubert and Vavi. If Hubert just holds on to the cash for a long time and then finds some way to dump it over to Vavi with a hack, like buying and selling out of resources appropriately, Vavi picks up Gameslayer before his stock price gets too high, and then they have a shot. But anything short of that, and I don't see Hubert and Vavi pulling this one out. Then on top of that, most players don't see that scenario. The idea of Vavi being the one to make the purchase, even though Hubert has all the stock, but it is definitely an option here this game. Saber Man has got to be close to finishing off Hubert. Looks like he's sitting on... He should have enough cash at this point, just about. We're looking at Gameslayer right now. Saber Man does have it. And there's the red button, and that just locks Vavi out of this completely. He needed to get that purchase done before Saber Man got the purchase done. That absolutely needed to happen. Now that Saber Man has gotten to the purchase, he has managed to re-secure all this stock in favor of Gameslayer, and Vavi's completely out of it. This game is 100% over. Completely done. And I don't know if we need to look at it anymore. There you go. Vavi did the concede. I like that. Hubert says he's out of practice and unfamiliar. That did look like an out of practice game for Hubert. I know that feeling. It can be a little awkward. Gameslayer and Saber Man, though, like, they're going to need to step it up, I think, to actually go against some of the other teams we've been seeing. That got a little awkward once they hit 5. They just couldn't get that kill done, and they almost found a way to throw it away to their opponents. That was a lot closer than it should have been after the starts that we saw right here. Let's see. Oh, guys, the silly banter in chat. All right. I think we saw most of what we needed to see during that game. Pleasure Domes weren't the end-all be-all this time. I don't know if they actually made any money whatsoever, but let's go ahead and take a look at how much money was made off entertainment. So yeah, only $218. That's actually pretty low for a Pleasure Dome, although it likely mattered in that it helped keep Gameslayer afloat, so he didn't like crash out, he didn't need money to pay off debt. So still a big deal, the Pleasure Dome game, but it didn't absolutely murder everyone, so at least that was nice to see. And let's see. No need to browse between people during the summary. You can see Saber Man making all kinds of money and Game Slayer losing all kinds of money. This is typically what you'll see in a strong two-man team. Just one guy ends up with almost all the profits and uses them to kill everybody else. Not as crucial now that stock purchasing is shared for your team, but it is something to consider. All right, and what else can we look at? F1 doesn't work to get back to that screen anymore, and that bothers me. Anything else we really need to look at? I don't think so. We could check out Black Market. I don't think it was being used quite enough that game. Hubert trying to get some work done with it. He had 10 purchases, 3 goon squads. Some good works with EMP and power surges in that mid game, I think. Really kept them in it. Vavy, maybe not enough work in the Black Market. He had an EMP and a couple power surges as well. But I feel like we could have seen a little more out of this to help boost things in. And then Game Slayer and Saber Man, you can criticize their Black Market as well. But it clearly didn't matter all that much. Would have liked to maybe see a little more pirating done, something like that. But they had the lead. And when you're in the lead, well, you don't necessarily need to spend money on the Black Market because your opponent is the one having to respond to you. So you just don't have to worry about it. I still thought the slant drilling was kind of awkward, though. All right, guys. Let's hop out of this one and see what we're going to hop into next.